Hello and welcome to How to Run a Successful Business and Still Have a Life. My name is Stacey Morgan and today's episode is brought to you by the Simply Business Summit. It is not too late to get yourself a spot on a lounge chair by the pool for the Simply Business Summit at the gorgeous Sea Temple in Palm Cove. Of course, we're going to be there relaxing and rejuvenating, but we're also going to be there working on our business, spending time on those things that we know are important to our business growth, but we perhaps don't ever have time to actually set aside and focus on. That's what we're going to be doing at the Simply Business Summit. If you'd like to see change in your business, if you would like to stop working so hard and instead work smarter, get really clear on your goals and what you want to achieve and the way you're going to achieve them, then please join us this winter in Palm Cove. It's going to be pretty special. It's going to be pretty special. It's also going to be 28 degrees. So I'm really looking forward to this. Going into this winter is feeling okay, knowing that at the end of June, I'm going to get some time in the sun. And I'd love you to join me. You can register now at simplystaceymorgan.com. Well, in today's episode, we're going to be talking all things motherhood because I put up a little poll on my Instagram story a couple of weeks ago and said, do you want to hear more business or do you want to hear more motherhood on the podcast? And surprisingly, you all popped in and said motherhood stuff. And I thought, okay, because this is episode 50 and up until now, we've been really focused on business. But as we do say in our tagline, we're all about, motherhood, marriage and making it in business. And so the motherhood and marriage part hasn't been featured too much up until this point. So for those of you who are keen to hear my thoughts on how the nurturing of my family part works along with the nurturing of my business, then you are here for the right episode. Today, we're going to be talking about connection. And, we've talked about connection in terms of our business before on the podcast. How do we build that connection with our customers? How do we continue to get them coming back to our business, not just, spending money with us once and then disappearing? And for me, connection is such an important part of my entire life because, yes, I am looking for that connection in my business. I am looking for that buy-in from my customers. But when I get home at the end of the day, I'm looking for that connection with the people I love as well. And working on that connection is really important to me. So I thought I would share the ways in which I have been connecting or really consciously connecting with my kids over the last little while, things that have been working for me and perhaps the things that also didn't work along the way, because for a long time I was trying to tick the boxes. I was trying to tick the boxes of the things I thought I should be doing as a good mum. I say that with air quotes, as a good mum. What are the things a good mum would be doing? And how can I find time in my schedule to do those things? But what I've kind of shifted now is to, not thinking about the things that I should be doing, but instead, how can I build connection with my kids in this very moment in order to try and knock off a little bit of that mum guilt. I find that it really helps that if I'm, not baking the cookies from scratch and not, building the vegetable garden out the back, but instead I'm spending, time really connecting on my kids' level, eye to eye with them, listening to what they're saying. I really find that it helps me kind of knock away that mum guilt that tends to tap me on the shoulder. Because whilst the connection is not something we talk about a lot, we do talk about the organic vegetable garden in the backyard and the baking the cookies from scratch. Those things, those things that get brought up in the mothers group or on the mother blogs, those things get talked about, but the connection doesn't get talked about as much. So I thought that's what I would share with you today. So when your child's a newborn, it's really easy, I find. Well, it's much easier to find that time for connection because there are certain milestones and moments that happen during your day, every single day, where that connection is absolutely necessary. So, you're spending time feeding, you're spending time changing, you're spending time getting them settled. And those things, they ultimately need connection. There's not much else to do whilst you're changing a dirty nappy other than to look your child in the eye and, giggle at them and talk at them and make noises with them and sing to them and all of those things that build connection. But I find that once they get a little bit more independent and they start, not needing you so much, so for that intensive time when they're younger, you have all of that intensive time where they're in your arms. as they start to get more independent and kind of move away a little more, you've got to start making time for those connections and finding ways for those connections. So at the moment, I've got Henry, who's 4, and Patrick, who's 6, and then Lucinda, who just turned 9. And with each of them at each of their different ages, there's different things that build that connection. With Henry, at the moment, Lego is his world. So as much as it pains me, and I do find it difficult, and I think it's important for me to say that, because we see these images of, mums playing for hours and hours with the kids. And I've done a lot of work with my OT and with my therapist on, finding that sweet spot between being productive in my world, but also finding that connection with my kids and making time for that connection. Because I find nothing more frustrating than sitting on the floor and playing Lego, or sitting on the floor and playing trucks. It's been really, really hard for me. So as each of the kids have grown, and, I've worked my way through this, it's been a 9-year process now. It's okay if you don't like playing Lego. It's okay if you find the building of the towers with the blocks really monotonous and really frustrating, because you are, in the back of your mind thinking about all the other things that you could be doing or should be doing. It's okay to sit into that, but it's also okay to know that the time that you're spending doing those things is really, really valuable. And it's been that mind switch for me that's been really helpful. So I wanted to say that, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. I don't love building the same tower and then knocking it down 15 times. But for Henry, that's what we do. So he's really, really into Lego. He's really, really into reading books and sitting down and spending the time. And so when we're doing those things, I really, really try and really sit into that and relax into that. And, I have to really kind of try my best not to be asking questions all the time, or to be leading the play myself, and instead letting him, as the 4-year-old, lead what, the car that we're building is going to look like, and lead where this play is going, and which books we're going to read, and where we're going to sit, and all of those things, giving him those choices and making him feel heard and feel understood in those moments. That's been a learning curve for me as well. But I really find that when I do sit into those things and do give him that autonomy and give him that moment, then it has a flow-on effect for his behavior for the rest of the day. If he has that good quality connection time with me in the morning, or we can do it, before lunch, I really find that the end of the day, which is always a nightmare, and I'm not saying at all that it's ever a walk in the park, but that end of day frustration and tiredness and struggle, and you need to clean your teeth, and you've got to get in the bath, and now you've got to get out of the bath, and now we've got to do stuff, like all of that stuff that happens as part of the nighttime routine, just becomes a little bit easier, because I feel like he's had his time, and he's felt like he's had his time during the day. So that's Henry, Lego, Henry on the floor. Patrick is heaven, and his own very special source of heaven. And he has an ASD level 1 diagnosis, and so he becomes fixated on certain things. And so that's been a really big learning curve for us as well, working through his diagnosis and the therapy that he has in order to make sure that he's functioning at his very best in all aspects of his world. That's been a massive journey for us too. But what we have found is that as part of that, Patrick has, things that he gets obsessed with. And when he was younger, it was diggers. Diggers were the flavor of the month. It wasn't possible for us to have more diggers in our house than we had when Patrick was 3. It was just, we would go and we would sit in the car and we would watch diggers, and we would drive past diggers, and we would play with diggers, and we would talk about diggers, and we would watch diggers on the like it was just crazy. And now that he's a bit older, he still gets fixated on certain things, and then those things now, because of all the work that he's doing, those things chop and change. So it's not just diggers for years and years on end anymore. It's different things that come in and out. And at the moment, it's tennis. So tennis is his thing. And it helped at the beginning of the year that the Australian Open was on, because he got to watch some tennis, and we went on holidays and there was a tennis court. And so he got to play some tennis, and now it's, it's his thing. And we've got one of those fabulous, stick in the ground with the piece of string and the ball on the end of it in the backyard that goes around and round. And he can spend hours out there hitting the ball. And, I know he's okay because I can just hear the tick, 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 tick as he's hitting the ball back and forth. And he's just loving it. And he's loving that repetition and that routine and the control that he has over that. But how I build connection with him is, putting my gumboots on, getting in the backyard and grabbing a racket and hitting it back and forth with him. As much as the same thing with the Lego, I think, this is real. This is not the best use of my time. It really is the best use of my time because it's indulging him in this, fixation that he has, this obsession that he has with tennis at the time. And he loves to tell me about how many hits he did in a row or how many misses that he had and, what's working and what's not and how many times it can go around and all of the things that are going on in his beautiful brain. And so really connecting with him about that and, jumping in and being inquisitive and trying to be part of that little world for him is really the thing that that helps me build connection with him. And with Patrick, he's, he has times where he really, really struggles to figure out what's going on in his little world. And so that often, ends up being part of, a meltdown that inevitably happens. And we've got pretty cluey now in seeing what the things are that are kind of triggering him to set one of those off. But again, what I've learned about that, and, I used to get so frustrated and it would be, so I'd jump straight into behavior management mode and straight into, well, you're going to go to your room and you're going to do, till you calm down, you're going to sit in the corner and these are the things you're going to do. And what I've found now is when I can see that coming on, instead of me kind of starting to rev up, instead I'm starting to think to myself, okay, connect. How do I connect with him in this moment so that he feels seen and feels understood and can help make sense of what he's feeling? So getting down on his level, holding both of his hands in front of me, looking him in the eye and saying, I can see that you're feeling a bit funny right now. What does that feel like? And what do you think's caused it? And do you think you've made a good choice? And do you think you could make a different choice? And having him kind of feed back to me what he's feeling like has, really been helping in kind of making sure those meltdowns don't just just explode out of nowhere like an erupting volcano, which happened so much more when he was younger. So that connection has been really, really helpful in terms of that behavior management as well. And for Luce, she's 9, so she's a little bit older. And along the way, she and I have had, things that we have built connection that she and I have done. But I can honestly say to you, because I didn't kind of think about this from this perspective until she was a little bit older, I feel like we kind of missed a lot of opportunities when she was younger. And so trying to make up for that now is kind of what we're doing. But she has this lovely connection building time with Heath. Heath is a big Harry Potter fan, and thus Lucinda has become also a very big Harry Potter fan. And so they're reading a chapter of Harry Potter or half a chapter of Harry Potter every night together, and that's their thing. That's their kind of thing that brings them together and their time of connection. And whilst, he's reading and she's, he's leaning up against the bed, she's laying over his shoulder looking at the book. They're not looking each other in the eye and, connecting in the same way that I was just talking about that I do with Patrick, but that it is a time of connection for them. And it's really beautiful to see that at the end of the day, that's how she winds down and she, that's how she's feeling love from Heath, and that's how they're building their relationship. And that's really, really cute as well. There was a time where she and I were watching Dancing with the Stars, when that was on at night, and that's hard because those shows often go a little bit later. And so I was feeling guilty about letting her stay up so late, but also really enjoying the banter and the conversation and she would love to talk to me during the day. What do you think they're going to do tonight? What dance do you think they're going to do? What costume do you think they're going to wear? And so I was really enjoying that connection that we were building as well. And that kind of was overriding the get to bed on time for a little while, which, has its payoffs and has its pros and cons, but it's it's again another way of building connection. She got a Mighty for Christmas this year, which is like an iPod, but it doesn't have a screen, so it syncs to your Spotify account. So she can go on my phone and make Spotify playlist, and then that will sync to her Mighty, and so she can have that on. And that was a little thing. Like, she always wanted to borrow my phone to listen to music, and now she's got her own, source of music that's very much curated and monitored by me, and it's connected to the internet, but it's not like she's going and browsing and can watch YouTube and stuff like that unattended. So the Mighty has been really, really helpful as well, because she loves to talk to me about music and what songs she wants to add, and what song was that you were listening to, Mum? I'm going to add that to my playlist, and what was that called? And so that's also where we're kind of building connection as she's getting a little bit older and finding her independence. But also, we had so many times where we were in lockdown or isolation over the last 6 months, and she and I found some common time that we got to spend together and connect during that time really helpful as well. We did puzzles, and we did a paint by numbers, which is now proudly I'm looking at here on my office wall, and things like that, where we were able to just stop and kind of just be together without any particular agenda. Whilst it was frustrating to be in isolation, it was a really lovely time to get to spend time with her. So that's the ways in which I'm making connection with the kids, at this stage, and how I've done that throughout the time. I encourage you, if you can, find that moment for connection with your kids today or this week as you're working your way through your week. Find that time to get down on their level and to hold their hands and to look them in the eye and to check in on how they're feeling and how their day was and what's going on. Because I am as guilty as anybody of just kind of throwing them in the car after school and saying, how was your day? Good, and then on to the next, and dinner and bath and bed and up and do the whole thing again the next day. So finding those moments for connection are super, super important. And if you have something that you do, I would love to learn from you. So please reach out to me. You can always find me on Instagram at Simply Stacey Morgan. And if you have something to share, I would especially love you to share it on your Insta story and to tag me in a post and let me know what you are doing in your family that is working. Of course, today's episode was brought to you by the Simply Business Summit. I would love you to join me in Palm Cove, where it's going to be beautiful and sunny and hot and fabulous in June, the very end of June. So it's the start of the school holidays in June, July. This year. The Simply Business Summit is, a group of incredible like-minded businesswomen who are also nurturing families and also trying to raise up their business and to grow their business so that they can have the lifestyle that they got into small business for in the first place. If that is you, if you are working hard and really not seeing the benefits, then invest in yourself, invest in that time, and come and spend some time with us at the Simply Business Summit. You can register now at simplystaceymorgan.com. Thank you so much for listening. I so appreciate you being here. If you liked this episode, then throw it on your Insta story, take a photo and stick it up there and tag me, and share it with any other mums who are craving that connection with their kids and perhaps looking for new ways to connect with their children, especially during this time. This is episode 50. How exciting. What a milestone we got to. I appreciate you listening and tuning in, especially if you've been here since the very beginning. Thank you so much for spending time, and I'll talk to you next week.